React is this huge JavaScript library, infrastructure, call it whatever you will, that helps you build really cool web user interfaces. Hi everyone, welcome to Learning React and my experiences of learning React. Now when I'm learning any new topic, I like to start from what I already know, so it doesn't feel like I'm going from algebra to the general theory of relativity in one jump. Now React is a JavaScript library for building web user interfaces. So I've been building HTML web front ends for ages. Many of you have too, probably. So let's look at something we already know, just a good old plain HTML file with an H1 and a table listing some great bands from the 1960s. So here's the output, just simple list of bands in a table. Now, what I did next was to rebuild that same application, but using React in React style format. I tried to make it look the same, and it does give or take a little bit of styling differences. When I look at the React version of that very simple application, it looks like this. I've got an HTML file that includes a JavaScript file. And in fact, when I look at the actual code inside that HTML file, here's what I've got. I've got a div with an ID that's very important because that's going to be used by React to identify where to render all the output. And a plain old script include an external JavaScript file. I call it 06_bundle.js. And that's it of my React application. So what's in that bundle file? Well, what's actually in that bundle file is all the React components that I had to write to compose the web page, and a whole bunch of other support components like the React infrastructure. Here's what I actually built. Don't worry about what's in them for now. Basically, here's the score with React. You write a little bit of JavaScript and it generates or outputs some HTML, which you use to build different parts of your web page. In my case, I built 𝐍𝐎𝐓𝐇𝐈𝐍𝐆, which generates the title, and 𝐍Playlist.js, which generates the actual table itself. So then I built app.js, which essentially wraps the show header and the show playlist into a single JS file. And then moving to the left, once again, I've got index.js, which essentially wraps the app.js. And this is in case I have lots and lots of JS files and I want to package them into separate sections, as it were, and then combine them all together in one index.js. So what are those stripy files? As it says at the bottom, it's a JavaScript file containing this special React JSX syntax that returns some HTML. So the key philosophy of React here is to modularize, to build small JavaScript modules that create the HTML for different parts of your web page. So here's my first thought, folks, when I encounter this: don't panic, because a lot of this technology, a lot of this thinking is not new. And here's why it's not new. Using special syntax inside regular programming languages to output HTML, well, if any of you have done Java server pages, you've already done something like this. You're already familiar with this. And if you look at the Wikipedia entry for Java server pages, you'll see it actually draws a similarity to React's JSX. So good. This is not new, nothing frightening here. One of the real big benefits, the 5-star benefit, I think here, is that you break up your web page into small components and you code the component to deliver the HTML for just small parts of the screen. React also has a lot of optimizing built in to try and speed up the whole rendering process. It keeps its own virtual DOM in memory and then only renders when it absolutely has to. Good. I'll take that. So let's return to my two HTML files that I wrote. One in the classic HTML, the one at the top, where all the HTML is inside the file, and the one at the bottom, the 06, which is built using React, where we have a tiny HTML file all of the major functionality is in that bundle.js. So the next big question, it seems to me, is, hey, how did you build that bundle.js file? Yeah, this one that you include in your small HTML file. Just note here that I've changed the nomenclature to index.html and bundle.js. These are just more generic terms, and you'll hear these more used in React discussions. So here's this storyline. I've got all these little JS files, and I have to bundle them into some big package that I can import into my HTML file. Just a comment here, folks, about creating small libraries to build gigantic applications, and along the way using some bundling software to combine all your small components into giant applications. Nothing new here, folks. Don't get terrified about this either. We've been doing this since day one in computer programming, right? You take your source code, you put it through a compiler, you get a semi-compiled format. Then you take your semi-compiled format, put it through a bundler or a linker. That linker has got a configuration file which will identify the inbound semi-compiled format and where to find all the libraries that you want combined. And your final output, and in this scenario, I've just used a executable in the Windows environment. The bundler or the linker will output a .exe file that will run under the operating system. That bundler or linker, or the link editor as it's sometimes called, has been around for a very long time in computer technology. In fact, Wikipedia dates it to something like the 1960s. So back to React. What are the key questions? What is the process or the steps that I did and is needed to build that bundle.js file? And question 2, what software did I use to create that bundle.js? So here's the picture. I've got that bundle.js, which is crammed full of good stuff. How did I make it? And here's the story. My bundler software is a product called Webpack. It's by far the most popular, the most successful bundling software in the JavaScript space right now. And what's going into it? Well, my index.js, which is all my modules, or at least the wrapper for all my modules. Below it are all the modules that I wrote, like that show header, show playlist, and so on, .js. Maybe some third-party modules that I liked. And then right at the bottom, the React core components. Send them all in to the bundler, and with enough configuration instructions, I will get my bundle.js. This is the Webpack website. As you can see, the picture looks even similar to the old link editor picture. Whole bunch of stuff going in, static assets coming out. But what? When I was writing those little components, I had to use some non-standard JavaScript syntax. It's called React JSX. Well, that's not going to work. So what's the solution? Well, the solution's fairly straightforward, isn't it? I need some converter to convert this non-standard React JSX style syntax into good old-fashioned JavaScript that my browser will understand. And this is where the conversion took place, here at the Webpack bundling stage. And I'm using Babel. Babel is the king by far of the JavaScript conversion products. It takes all the JSX and possibly even ES6 JavaScript and converts it and sends back to Webpack the converted version of the JavaScript, which will then be bundled into bundle.js. We're going to need a configuration file with Webpack to tell it where to find the input, what converters you want to use, and what you want to call the output. And the configuration file in the Webpack space is called webpack.config.js. And folks, it can be and is fiddly, tricky, and complex. But hey, that's been the story of all configuration files, I think, throughout the IT industry, right? You can make a good living, pay your mortgage, pay your kids' education through college just by becoming an expert on configuration files on some very complex software products. Not only can you convert JSX at the bundling stage, but you can also have Webpack manage other tools, other converters, or as we see here at the bottom, CSS preprocessors. So with all that knowledge, there seems to me to be two distinct learning tracks I can go down. And here are the two distinct tracks. Track number one, if I just want to learn React JSX components, I can use track one. Now this is where I can build React JSX components, learn about React, and just write them in standalone HTML files and run them from the browser. Track number two is the whole works, as it were. This is where you actually do all the bundling, wrestle with the web.config.js configuration file, but you also learn a whole bunch of great new stuff in the JavaScript space, notably, as it says there, Node.js and NPM. I wanted to learn React JSX, how to build React JSX components, learn the syntax, and the way that's most useful I found is just to build them in standalone HTML files and run them from the browser. So folks, in the next few episodes, I'm going to identify what files you will need so you can build your React applications in standalone HTML files and where you can get these crucial files. And then a whole series about building cool React applications.